Hi, everyone. It's Maddie and Bridget.
Hi.
Work got really crazy this past week, and so we ran out of time to record our regular. Well, okay, we didn't run out of time to record. We have 16 games to play,
That's a
and
lot of time.
we ran out of time to play all 16 games to continue the March
Ugh.
Madness bracket part 2. So we are just moving that episode back a week. So it'll be next week. It's not that delayed, but we just need an extra week to finish playing the games. So instead, today we're doing like a little special episode that you will find out about in like 2 seconds.
Yay. Special episode. Hi, I'm Bridgette.
And I'm Maddie. Welcome to Baddy Breakdowns, where we hang out, have fun, and play games all the way to the end. Today, we're doing a special episode about GDC. Bridget got the chance to go to GDC this past week, and so we thought it would be really fun to do a little episode where we talked about the talks that she went to and her experiences and all of that good stuff. So we're going to take you on a deep dive of that instead of our March Madness. And as I said in the intro, we'll get back to March Madness in the next one. So
Yeah.
with that, let's game developer conference.
Let's convene. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I think maybe should I do a little intro into what GDC is?
Yeah, that would be perfect. Do you have that off the
Okay.
top of your head? Because all I have is the acronym, so.
I'm gonna try. So GDC stands for the Game Developer Conference. It's every year, and it's really for game developers.
Mhm.
So it's sessions about making games, about how to publish your game, some marketing stuff, tech stuff, and a bunch of the video game companies will show up there and, have meetings about their platforms, and there's a bunch of like networking that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a huge piece of it, like mixers and stuff, just so that you can kind of get your game out there and start to market it, and then also get tips on like better ways to develop it and what's the new tech to develop your game. And yeah, it's a really cool conference. So we're going to talk about some of the sessions that she went to.
Yeah. I went to a lot. I sessioned
Yeah.
myself out. I went to a ton.
Which is good. You got to take advantage. Did you do any of the mixers?
So how do I say this? Okay, listen, I am so not a networker. Like, that's not who I am at heart. I actually made the comment to a couple of folks that were there with me that I had been stopped the first day like 5 or 6 times by random people at the conference to like come up and talk to me for various reasons. Usually my sweatshirt, which was the Barbie sweatshirt, or my hair, or some combination of the two. And everyone was in such a networking headspace that it wasn't like what I would normally get, which is the drive-by, nice hair, like keep going. It was like
Yeah.
actual conversation that happened afterwards. And I was like, oh, that's the vibe. Because this is my first time, right? And so I didn't know. Like, I've been to Grace Hopper and I'd been to E3 before. And but those, and then I've been to PAX, I guess. But those are really like the only big conferences that I've been to. And
Yeah.
this one had much more of like a Grace Hopper vibe, to be totally honest with you. It was very networky. So I didn't actually, I knew of a few things that were happening. I did not go to them because they were mostly networking events. And I honestly, like, they were fine. I just didn't really want to do it. And I was actually telling Maddie before this that I was pretty exhausted the whole trip after all the things I had to do. And then all of the travel and everything else. I would say like a mixture of what I did was probably like 80% talk And then the rest was like I walked the expo floor a little bit, and then most of the actual like conversations and networking that I did with people was in those like 30 minutes before talks started, because the way that they like scattered all of the talks is they would be spread out by 30-minute blocks each time, so there'd be like a 30-minute gap. And I would go in like pretty early because some of the talks are filling up really, really fast. And so I would go right when the other one ended and sit. And then whoever was sitting next to me, I would end up talking to for about like 30 minutes before the thing started. So that was primarily what I did while I was there. I know that a lot of people go to like the parties afterwards, because they have actual like real parties. Like there were parties that weren't just like social networking parties. There were parties that were actual like dance club parties, and they have like these full lists that have all of the different events and stuff on them, and like where they're at and how you get in, if they cost money, if they don't. And there are like a ton of them, and there's a ton of people there. It was just not the vibe that I needed for myself this week, and I feel like I learned a lot. I just wasn't really like in the networking space for some of this.
Totally.
Let's start with the pitch sessions, because they were really fun.
Yeah.
And
yeah, why don't you give a little intro into how they were structured and what these pitch sessions actually were?
Yeah, so 2 of the days, so the conference is 5 days long. The expo floor, which you like walk around in, had a bunch of booths, whatever else. And within that like expo hall, there were a couple of stages. And on 2 of the 5 days, they had opened up one of the stages. And what they would do is they had 3 judges come out, and then they had 5 indies each day come up and do an actual pitch deck for their game, like they would give to investors or publishers to be able to give them money to finish their game.
Oh, so it was to give them money.
So I figured it out later, but they don't actually win money or get like investment from the pitch. They get free tickets to GDC next year. So so what they really get out of it, in my opinion, isn't like, I mean, yeah, you gotta go to GDC next year. That's great. But it's more like everybody in that room now knows.
Visibility.
Yeah. And you get feedback, like direct feedback from people that you would have given your pitch deck to, who said, change this, do this differently. And then you're better set up for when you do need to go make those pitches, right?
I guess the real pitches probably happen behind closed doors.
Yes, they definitely do. So what I had read about before I had went was a lot of people who want to do pitches like that, they will email publishers like a month or more in advance in order to schedule time with them. And then they had special rooms, like some of the publishers actually, like in the hotel I was staying in, there were a few doors that were just hotel rooms that had like things on them, and they were for specific publishers. So I think that the publishers just set up shop somewhere around the conference center, and then they do private, like behind closed doors meetings with people all through the week. So I think a lot of people are doing that if they're trying to get actual like funding during this conference, because everybody's in the same spot. But anyway, so this pitch session, there were 2 of them. I only went to the first one because I couldn't make it to the second one. But the way that they work is each indie developer has 5 minutes, and those 5 minutes go by so fast, holy moly. And then there's about 5 minutes afterwards.
That's not very much time.
No, to go through all they have to get through. What I learned at these pitch sessions were like the core things that are required to be a part of a pitch are pretty standardized, is what I've learned, which maybe if you're a part of the industry full time and you make these all the time and you're the person pitching them, you know that. But I didn't realize that they were so standardized, but they were, like they really were. I do think that, Maddie, I think that you and I can make decks that are better than some of these decks, just because that's like what we do constantly.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching it, I'm like, I feel like I can make this deck. Like I was feeling pretty empowered. Like the people did a great job. And honestly, giving your pitch in front of 300 people in the audience watching you has to be like the scariest thing ever. And then to be critiqued.
Oh, totally.
So like the fact that these people went up there and did it was amazing just by itself. But yeah, it's scary. So the 5 games that did this, I will again caveat with the fact that like they were judged live and in person, And I have some judgments myself, and I'll be nice about it because, again, it's very scary to do it. But it was really fun to watch. So
I haven't heard these yet, so I'll have the unfiltered,
yes,
nice opinion because I
yes.
wasn't there.
So the first game that came up was called Akayam, I think is how you say
Okay.
that, and it was a Bollywood Paper Mario. I
Oh, that
know.
sounds cool.
It was so cute, and the way that they like presented it as they like. So again, this is all about the pitch deck, right? And the way that they presented it was they started right off the bat, like emphasizing the fact that this was going to have like Bollywood energy and like everything in it was going to be like big and loud, just like those would be. And they, I thought, did a really good job highlighting how their game was going to be different, but also relatable, like easy to understand. So I thought they did a really good job of getting the point across. But what it really was, the art looked like little potatoes. I will say that. Like it was nice art, but all the little people looked like little potatoes. And they would
That's funny.
do dance battles is how you would fight. It was like turn-based dance
Oh,
battles.
that's cute.
And they wanted it to be cinematic and themed cinematically based on like the way that Bollywood movies and are shot, which are always like very dramatic and kind of bigger, bit larger than life. And the whole team actually was made up primarily, I don't know if it was the whole or like a very, very, very large portion, were made up of people who grew up in India. So they were really excited to bring like Indian culture into like these games because there's not that many of them. One of the people on it were one of the developers of Benba, which if you remember was the game that I really liked.
And you loved that one. Yeah, it's on my list still. I have it downloaded, but I haven't played it yet. And I know I need to just sit down and do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really short one, but I was really excited to see that. I was like, that by itself, I'd probably just pick it up. The interesting thing and feedback that they got, which I think is just curious because I never considered it before, is as they went through the pitch deck, first they had asked for, I think, around $200,000 left to finish it up. And I about died at that number, but then Chris talked me down. He was like, Bridgette, like one developer is like $100,000. So
yeah.
So he's like, it's really not a lot of money. But
no, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of getting these things made.
It's not. But like a lot of that budget they wanted for QA and localization and porting, which was the pattern for every single one of these titles. Like everybody needed this, was like that stuff. And then like PR and marketing was always like a please help us do PR kind of thing. But the thing that the judges brought up for this one, which I thought was interesting, was that they said, hey, if you're going to make a game that's this culturally significant about India, do you have in your budget like the fact that we're going to have to be localizing to India? And like you talked about having
there's so many different languages.
Yeah. And then they talked about like, well, are you going to do voiceover? Because if so, that's also going to get really expensive because you need to make sure that you're catering to like that whole audience also if you're going to do something that culturally significant. So it was really interesting approach, but yeah.
I mean, that's good feedback. Like make sure you're accounting for localization.
Yeah.
And like the voice actors need to be, I mean, obviously the people making it were Indian.
Yeah.
So like they have the connection to the culture, but just making sure you're bringing that through in every aspect is a good push.
It was definitely interesting. I really liked this game. This game was the one that I thought should win personally. It did not win. Very sad.
Oh, sad. Okay, well tell me about the other ones.
Okay, so the next one is called Anima Flux, which was a co-op.
What?
Anima Flux.
Okay.
Which was a co-op Metroidvania.
Okay.
And this one I had a really hard time with personally because they like the only thing that made this game stand out was the fact that it was co-op because most Metroidvanias are not co-op, right?
Or single player. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And so a lot of their deck I don't really feel like got the point across as to like who their audience was or like what made it super special other than the fact that they're just like leaning on the fact that it was co-op. And don't get me wrong, like I think co-op Metroidvania sounds like kind of fun, but it like in the art style, which looked kind of nice, it was more like a hand-drawn kind of art style.
Okay.
Like it wasn't a bad art style. It was very like sci-fi heavy, but it was definitely I wasn't like jumping at the bit to like try and play this game afterwards.
Yeah.
And this presentation was a presentation where I noticed that anything goes in these presentations. Like, you can say and claim anything, and that is like your prerogative. Because in this one, and they did it in a lot of the other ones after this, but this is the first one that I noticed, they would say things like breathtaking sci-fi story universe. And then that's it. That's the only line.
Oh, interesting.
That's the only line on the slide. And I was just like...
So it's just like very high level.
Very high level. And it's like, as a PM, I'm over here being like, support your claim. Like, what makes it breathtaking? Like, tell me all these things, right? But on the slide, it was just like whatever. I can't remember if breathtaking was the word.
Sci-fi. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was very much so like they're making a claim on the fact that this is like an amazing in-depth thing, but they don't give any sort of context to like how they made it that way. And I noticed that across all of these different presentations, and a lot of them were just like, I'm going to tell them what I think they're going to get, but I'm not going to necessarily have all of the like information to back it up. And not one of the judges criticized them on any of them.
Huh.
Which was also interesting.
Be standard.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, wild, because I feel like if I would have done that, I would have had like all of these different supporting
why is it? Yeah
exactly. But no, it's just like, it's breathtaking, and that's like the end of it, and that was wild.
I mean, I guess it's a pitch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you don't want to give too much away because you don't want someone to steal your ideas potentially. I don't know.
Maybe in a deck that wasn't
or you
5
keep
minutes
them
long.
Wanting, that's part of the pitch.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And like my understanding is that most pitches are more like 30 minutes to an hour. So maybe it's possible that a thing like that would get expanded on to like 5 different slides. You know what I mean? But nobody criticized them for them in these, and I was just like, can you just do that? I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me the next.
The next one is Aperion. All of these names are very hard to pronounce. And this one was a little interesting, and where I think my skepticism started stepping in a bit. So this one was a third-person action open world RPG, which is huge.
That's a really ambitious game for a
really ambitious. And I will say that all of these people, they were not solo devs. Like, they had a little team. I can't remember how big this team was, but I would say like maybe 10, maybe 15. I don't know. It was like non-zero. Like, they had people.
Yeah, that's pretty small though.
It was still pretty small for like
open
a pretty
world
hefty
RPG. I guess. How big is Larian Studios? Pretty big, right?
I actually don't know. That's a good question. I would have guessed like 50 for Larian is what I would have guessed, but I don't know.
How many people? 400, Bob.
I take it back. 400.
Hey, you were under, so Price is Right rules. You still win.
That's right. But yeah, so like the size of the dev team, unless they didn't put everybody in the whole little studio on a slide, but that was also a standard thing, is everyone had in their slide deck who was working on it and their like experience in games, which apparently seemed very important as well, because they wanted to see proof that the people on your team can slog it through all the way to ship something. They were like, shipping a thing is really, really, really hard. And so if you have people on your team that have made it through that before, that can keep you going. And they were also, through all of these different presentations, they showed things like, this person worked on this AAA game, or this person worked on this notable game and shipped it for like chops. Like, hey, I know that we've done this before. We know how to do it. And so unless they didn't put everybody on that slide, it was a pretty small team. And they didn't have a lot of answers to all the questions that they asked. Like, there were a ton of questions. And then this one, I think, asked for like $1 million almost, like another $1 million to make it happen.
Okay.
And yeah, and so like the cost of all these things are also like wildly different. And so this one, I honestly like, they didn't have a video for gameplay. They just had screenshots. So I actually couldn't really tell what the game was, other than maybe just like Skyrim a little bit. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't really tell.
So what made it different?
They didn't really. So they technically did have it, but the way that they described it were like in paragraphs on a slide, and there weren't any gameplay to like contextualize it. Like, a lot of the feedback they got was that they needed to put that stuff later so that people even understood what those slides were. And so they theoretically had a slide that said it, but there were so many words and it was the very first slide and I didn't even know what we were like talking about yet that it was really hard to digest. Just hard. Yeah.
Okay, next one.
Okay, next one. Heroes of Mount Dragon. This one was a dragon brawler roguelite. So a lot of magical words thrown in there. The judges freaking loved this one. And I was just cracking up laughing because they kept talking about how their game was super like unique and different. And I couldn't figure out if they were saying that it was unique and different to like brawlers because of the roguelite piece. And I was like, that is such like roguelite is just everywhere right now. So it was,
yeah, you said that. You're over it.
yeah, I was like, okay. I mean, I like roguelite.
Okay, but you love Turnip Boy.
It's true. I did love it. And so like, I love like Dead Cells. I really liked Hades.
Yeah.
So, you know, like there's space here. I just thought it was funny that they kept talking about like this innovative thing that was like a brawler roguelite. And I was like, oh.
Everything is a roguelite right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it that unique? Yeah.
But he did a really good job presenting all of it. Like he had all of the answers. Like every single thing that I would have had a question about, he had up on the slide, even in 5 minutes. I was like, holy moly. So the guy did a really good job. And then what was really interesting about this one was that they had a whole slide about like additional revenue streams outside of this video game. So they are apparently building on top of this larger brand that they're trying to set off all at the same time. So like books, like a physical board game.
Whoa.
I can't remember if it was merchandise, but I think also merchandise. And then the video game itself. And they're trying to like simultaneously do these things at once to like create this ecosystem that, you know, would be very profitable if it caught on. Which the publishers, like the judges, loved. They were super into it. They were like, we love to see, and apparently this is a thing that comes up pretty often, is a lot of devs don't like the idea of things like extra material being made in different like types and for retail. And so she was like, one, I loved that I got to see that right up front and center, that you were not only into it, but already kind of thinking about it and pursuing it. And two, like the additional revenue that those kinds of things could bring could really catch on. So they were like wildly into it. Whereas my gut reaction to seeing it at first was, wow, that is a lot to bet on like a new thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
But they were really into it. And the dev team on this one was a very seasoned dev team. Like it was full of people who had shipped a lot of games. So I think that all of that together, these people were like really put together, really confident. And it's not a game I think that I would play. But it was
I'd probably play it. It sounds like something I'd play.
Chris said that he would probably play it. So you should look it up. But that one was the one that did win. And then the last one was Rise of Pellies. And this was the one that I was messaging you about, Maddie, as like it was happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this one was wild because all I can remember about this presentation were like the things that stuck out to me now at this point. And it was the way that they described their game, like right up front, like right away, was that it was like Baldur's Gate 3 and Factorio. And I like,
that's so bold.
Did you watch Love is Blind this season, Maddie?
Yeah. Megan Fox. Like,
it was really Megan Fox, Chelsea energy.
Did you watch? There was a TikTok though where someone put Megan Fox's face on her head.
I did,
and it did work.
But that's not the point.
It's a stretch.
It's not the point though. The point is you can't say I look like Megan Fox unless you look better than Megan Fox. You know what I mean? Because then in your head you've got Megan Fox now, and you have to compete against that. And even like 2 points below Megan Fox is still unfortunate. Even if you would have been like a 7 otherwise. You're just not going to get up to like the 10 that is Megan Fox. And that's
for those that are lost on the pop culture tidbit at the moment.
Yeah.
In Love is Blind, the most recent season, the whole point of Love is Blind is that you can't see who you're talking to, and they get engaged before they see each other.
Yeah.
And so there was this one couple, and she had said she looked like Megan Fox, and she's very cute. She does not look like Megan Fox.
No.
Megan Fox is otherworldly amounts of attractive.
Yes.
So it was a huge stretch. And the guy was like immediately disappointed when he saw her.
Immediately.
And it was actually quite a sad moment.
It was.
I felt really, yucky watching it because I was like,
Oh.
this makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
there's the
but again, she
pop
did it to
culture
herself
fill-in.
a little bit because she wasn't bad
She did.
looking. Like, she's not a bad
she
looking
did.
girl.
No, she's cute.
Yeah,
but
and I can't
not
imagine
Megan
like
Fox.
people being immediately disappointed seeing her unless you make a comparison like to Megan Fox. You just can't do that. And so
Yeah.
this game was like,
Anyways,
we're
yeah.
BG3 in Factorio, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's
because
really bold.
it
That's
is
really bold.
very bold. And like, don't get me wrong, the idea of a BG3 Factorio game is kind of like hot. Like, ooh, like that feels pretty good. Like,
That's hot.
yeah, I'm like, I want to play that, you know? So like, it's not even that the game itself felt bad. It's just like, I
Yeah.
was like, wild comparisons, bro. Like, I would like step a little bit back. And then the way a couple other things that stood out as they're going through it is one of the key things that everybody had to have were comp titles. So like, what comps do you have? How much money did those comps make? And so that you could figure out as a publisher how much money you might have a chance of making. And from what I gathered in the feedback, you're probably supposed to pick titles that are pretty varied, like ones that are known but less popular, some that are like fairly popular, and maybe one that's like, this blew everybody out of the water. But because of the comparisons that they had drawn and like the comps that they had, they also just had a bunch of titles that just blew things out of the water. And they got called out on that a little bit. They're like, hey, like these are the winners of the winners. Like, what are the average that we're going to see here, right? And so that was a little interesting. And then everybody also had, I missed this on the House of Dragons one too, but everyone also had like, here's my audience and like, here's what I want, like my goals to be, here's how much money we think we're going to make. And here's a Mount Dragon one so that they wanted a Metacritic score of 80 or above. And I was just, that was wild to me. But you would include, so like, doesn't everybody? Like, I don't know. And like, how do you, I don't know. But then this guy had for his audience 90% male, 10% female. Yeah, like up on the slide, and I immediately like felt kind of grody, like looking at it. I was like, oh, like, so you're just not building it for me, or you don't think that we're gonna like it? Are you being realistic about these numbers? Like, what does this mean? Was this like a prefabricated choice to say, hey, we don't think a lot of women are gonna play this, so we're just gonna make it for the boys? And that's gross.
for the boys.
It's just gross. And I was very thankful that one of the women judges called him out on it, and she's like, listen, I'm gonna be really realistic with everybody in this room. Like, we do math like this. Like, we when we get a pitch deck, we work with our marketing team to figure out, okay, yeah, what is the makeup of the kind of audience that would be interested in this title and what we're gonna get. She was like, but we have professionals that have all of this insider information because of all of the games that we published, blah 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 blah, and we can figure out how that would work, but we wouldn't build a game with that in mind. You know what I mean? Like, it was very like, we do that behind the scenes to better understand.
After the fact marketing strategy.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Totally.
Yes. And they're like, and we do that. And she's like, I do not want to see percentages on these slides. She's like, please God, like, it should not be here. You don't know if this is the right answer. And I have like a lot of questions about like why you'd put that here. And I was like, hey, at least somebody called it out. But man, it's wild. Yeah. But overall,
so then the dragon one won.
Yes. So House of Mountain Dragon.
The Bollywood one sounds the most interesting to me.
It was the most interesting to me just because I love Paper Mario and I love the idea of bringing in like the Bollywood like style.
The dance battles sounds really cool.
Yeah, like it looked really cute. And so I wanted it to win, but I could definitely see how the pitch itself for the Mountain Dragon one was better. Like, it was really, really, really well done. But overall, I feel like if listening, if you end up going to GDC, I would definitely check out these sessions because they were just so fun to watch. And I do feel like I could pitch a game now.
Like thinking about, yeah,
for sure.
Thinking about how to do it yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about some of your favorite sessions.
Okay. I am going to say one session for the end because it was wild. But some of my favorites that I really liked. One, I went to a couple Alan Wake 2 sessions.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. And
tell me more about that one.
So
are those?
I went to one where they talked about like the implementation of the case board, which I think is less interesting for a podcast. So we don't have to get into that one as much. But the other one that I went into for them was on their narrative design and like
Oh, cool.
how they put everything together. And so they went through like Saga's pieces and they went through Alan's pieces and they talked a lot about how they built that narrative together. And one, it was probably like the best like just most fun, most interesting discussion that I saw, but also it was just like really, really interesting to see how they thought about it. So when they
Mhm.
were going through, I'm trying to get up to here so that I can do the right thing. So when they were going through all of the different pieces, they talked a lot about how you build investment in the individual characters and how that connects a lot to the actual mechanics of the game. And
Huh.
one of the things that I don't think I realized at a larger studio, I figured this would be this way at a smaller one, but at a larger one, it was even this way, where the narrative designer worked really closely with the game mechanics folks and the game designers to make
Yeah,
sure that all of the mechanics match the way that the narrative, like they wanted to work really, really closely together. And
totally.
as they were talking through the different mechanics, a lot of what they talked about was taking simple mechanics and trying to build them like piece by piece into something that's a lot more interesting and serving the narrative itself. So like the examples that
Hmm.
they gave was the mind place, which if you guys didn't check out our Alan Wake 2 podcast, go check that one out and then come back if you're really interested. But
Yeah,
the mind place, they were like it could be a menu. Like you could have had a menu on a screen
totally.
and you like click through to go to all these different places. Like you definitely could have done that. And instead we wanted to make it more like an event, a thing that makes sense within the scope of the story. And then they had like the case board. They're like the case board could have very easily been like a journal. But instead, in order to fit the narrative, it made more sense like in this like larger space and then we could do
To
more with
have the
it.
mechanic of setting the
Yes.
yeah.
It feels more like you're more invested in it because you're now like doing stuff and moving things around
Mhm.
yourself. And then they talked about how the profiling stuff was actually really fun because if you remember, it had that weird haunted like terrible like things happening as you were doing it. And the profiling stuff could have been a conversation. That's how it actually started. So originally in the mind
Mhm.
place, profiling was a person would just like appear and sit across the table from you and you would have a
Oh.
conversation with them, but then they were like, wow, this is literally just a conversation, it's kind of boring, like how do we spookify this and make it more interesting. And
Spookify.
that was
Yes.
like one of the things that they talked a lot about here was they had like the initial seeds of what they wanted to do and the mechanic didn't change as much as the presentation did. And so in this case, they were like, the mechanic is literally identical. We're going to make the presentation way, way different. So we're going to make it a little bit more eerie. We're going to make it feel very different, like you're inside her head. We're going to
Yeah.
do all this stuff to make it stand out from not just another conversation that you're having. And like that also helps kind of mix it up a little bit from all of the other
Cool.
conversations that you have. So that was really, really interesting. Some of the other things they talked about too was like building friction in places where it made sense, but not like too much friction. There's a lot we
Oh,
could go
okay.
into on that, but they wanted to emphasize that a little bit of spice of friction will help again make people more invested because they worked harder to get there,
Yeah.
which love that. It was super
Do you
interesting.
have like a example that they gave?
Um let's see. Like the Allen, like the when you have Saga's big board out there, like you could theoretically right away, based on a conversation, know the output, but instead you're like going and you're picking up the cards and you're finding where to put them, and then you put them in a place, and then now you have a connection unlocked, and then you get the answer. So it was like
Got it.
building in a little bit of extra step that made it just a little bit harder to be able to get that moment of success, but not a lot harder. So they talked about how it really is spiced. You couldn't just put friction everywhere because that's exhausting as a
Not
player.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But trying to do it that way. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit was on Alan's side of the house. So on Alan's side of the house, if you remember, they had like his writing room. So you had the mind palace
Mhm.
and then you had the writing room. So in the writing room, originally they had a board that looked almost identical to Saga's board. It was like the same thing. And they're like, ship it. We've done like we've already built it. It'll make the dev cost like way lower. And instead they spent a lot of time like going through it and being like, wow, this just doesn't make sense like in this universe. And as a writer, like we can't fit it in. And so they redid it like so many different ways to try and figure out and narrow down to getting it to be something.
They landed on a chalkboard, right?
Yeah, so it's still like what they wanted to do was keep a presentation that felt similar so that it didn't feel like one of the things they talked about too was when you start adding in a bunch of small elements like this and in two totally different like universes, they were worried a little bit about having these super complex systems that were hard to learn, and you had to continuously learn new things as you're hopping back and forth or like remember them. So they wanted something that was similar so that it didn't feel brand new. They wanted something that felt more intuitive, but they couldn't make it identical because they're like, this is just not working. Like it just doesn't fit with what we're looking at. And they did eventually, of course, make their way into the writer's room with like the chalkboard, but it had like a similar vibe while the mechanics were different. And then the last thing that I thought I would just say, because I thought that it was super, super interesting, the Mind Place and the writer's room. You remember that you couldn't pause while you were in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Made me very tense. I was like, oh my God, I can't pause. I can't do this. Like anytime I have to be like in a safe space in order to do it. That was literally just a development issue. Like literally, that's not what they wanted. It was a development issue. And they were like, the cost of fixing that and making that work and having it actually be paused is too high. Like we're not doing it. And they decided that it was kind of like a secret win kind of for the spookiness, right? Because it helps keep that tension up of, oh my God, I could even die in here. But apparently the spooky boys that are there to kill you, unless you're like immediately engaged or like right nearby and doing something, they will attack you. But if you're already in a place where they haven't noticed you and you're kind of like just chilling, they have a thing in there so that they're way less likely to see you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. So I really loved that talk. They did a really, really good job on it.
Yeah.
The other ones that I went to, some of them were interesting, some of them weren't. One of them that I liked was from the people who made Salt Sea Chronicles, which I now want to play after seeing it. I had never heard of it before. But they did a little talk on mini games and world building and how they used a mini game to develop more of like how the world feels. And they talked about, you know how so many games have just like card games inside of them? They talked a lot about how they wanted to be like an additional game in there to like break things up. But the mini game, they wanted to tell more story about what the culture was like there. And so I really liked the talk. It was a really short one. It was only 30 minutes. They developed this board game, and the board game, depending on where you were in the world, had different like house rules based on the community that you were playing in, because the different communities like believe in different things and act in different ways. So of course their games would reflect that. And I thought that that one was just really interesting to see this little indie talk about things like that.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then
this game looks adorable,
right? It looked so cute. Yeah. I really,
and it has really good reviews. It's just not reviewed very much.
Yeah, I really liked it. I think we should probably put that one on our list at some point because it looked super cute. The last one I'll talk about is like a set of ones. Okay, so you guys know because I've talked about it on this podcast before, but I'm trying to build a murder mystery dating simulator, right? And so I wanted to go to talks that were related to the things that I wanted to learn. And I went to marketing talks and narrative talks, all this kind of stuff. And the last two talks of the day that I went to were one on sex and romance in games. And then the last one was like an AI roundtable. Okay, the reason that I'm like bundling these together in like a way is because these were the two most dichotomous roundtables that I've ever been to in my whole entire life. Because I go into the sex and romance one, right? And it's just full of colorful people like me. They all look like me, Maddie. And some of them, like, glitter tops. There was a glitter top in there that I adored.
Bridgette texted me and she was like, wow, everyone is like me. It's like, you have found your people.
It was amazing. But it was like a super, like, lively, very, like, I think more like younger skewed, but not necessarily very colorful crowd. A lot of people super willing to, obviously open to talk about like sex and romance and sexuality and stuff inside of this room, and I'll talk a little bit about what we talked about because it was really interesting. But that, and then I went to the AI roundtable, and it was just a bunch of like old white people and me. Sick. And then like there's only like 3 girls in the whole room. It was such a different vibe. It was also pretty boring, so I won't talk about it. But the sex and romance one was actually really interesting. I sat next to the dude who invented buttplug.io. So I don't know if we're I don't know if we're allowed to put that on a podcast. This is
I'm keeping that.
But what was so funny is like I wasn't sure if this talk was going to be more like erotica, like adult games, or if it was just going to be like dating sim or a combination. It was a combination.
I'm so sorry. I have to.
Are you looking at buttplug.io?
Knowing. Okay.
It controls vibrators and fleshlights.
My parents. Yes, my parents listen to this podcast, but I'm going to truck forward anyways because this is too good not to share. Buttplug is an open source standards and software project for controlling intimate hardware.
Yes.
And then the first thing is welcome Lethal Company and Cult of the Lamb players.
Yes.
So
what are they?
I really want us to talk about Lethal Company.
Right?
Because I don't understand what part of Lethal Company is
erotic. I know. I kept trying to think about it. I was like, maybe there are mods for Lethal Company that we're not aware of that make it more intimate, but I don't even know where you would put that. Like, do you have sex with the monsters? Is it like when you get stung by bees? Like things that... I just don't know. Are you looking it up? Because I want to know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
I just, what was so funny while we were sitting there, so it's a round table, so the way that it works is like you raise your hand and like ask a question and then other people answer like around the room, so there's not like a one presentation, it's more of a discussion. And I had spent, like I said, I get there early and then I talk to people. So I was there 30 minutes early and I'm talking to the guy that's sitting next to me. That was pretty cool. And then the other guy at the time I didn't know who he was. And we started talking about hot coffee. Do you remember hot coffee back in like the early 2000s, Maddie, for GTA? I think San Andreas, maybe?
No,
it was this big scandal because they released San Andreas with like files that you couldn't necessarily access in game but still existed in there that had you like controlling sex while you were having sex. I don't remember if it was with a prostitute or with just a person. But you like control the character and you like play this graphic sexual scene, I guess. And we were talking about that, and our 30 minutes lead up was the scandal of hot coffee and like why was it so scandalous? TLDR, the answer is because children theoretically could go then find those files later once a mod released it, and it wasn't rated in a way that accommodated for you having, you know, this like very intimate act. So that was mostly what the stuff was. But we were sitting there talking about hot coffee, and this guy was so like knowledgeable. I'm like, oh my God, this guy knows so much. I'm like, did he work for Rockstar? Like, how does he know so much about this? And he's giving all these details. It's just amazing. So I was thinking this guy was like super like, because he's a little bit older, and I was like, he is a veteran in the industry and he has all this information. This is amazing. And then like it's like the second question pops right off the block, and he goes and he's like, hi, I'm so and I founded buttplug.io. And I was just like, it was amazing. It was the best thing that's ever happened. It was so funny.
Incredible.
And then there was like a lady across the room that was super into it. She was like, I will talk to you later. And I'm like, I want the confidence of that person. Like, that was amazing. It was great. Have you found it yet, Maddie, by the way?
Sorry,
are you okay?
I found a Reddit thread about it. And it's just, as you imagine a Reddit thread about this would be.
What?
It vibrates on walkie usage by other players. Okay, so you
I
need
don't
consent.
like that. You need
I
consent.
don't love that.
I don't like that.
Unless you have consent. I guess you'd have to have like full consent from everyone you're
everyone
playing with.
in the room. Otherwise, that's like creepy. Ooh, that's creepy.
That's weird.
I do not like that.
That is weird.
I don't like it. That's less fun. I thought maybe it was like when you die, you know, like you're getting murdered by a monster, like maybe something weird like that. That's less good. That's less fun.
Then all of the comments are just, any videos up yet, asking for a friend.
God. Ridiculous.
Degens.
Yes.
Degens.
What
Degens abound.
What I learned in that talk was that there are a lot of people willing to have really interesting conversations, but also I just wanted my game to be like romantic and kind of cute and very like fade to black. You know what I mean? And so it was definitely a mixture. I will say, though, that I appreciated a lot of the commentary that people had there, because apparently Baldur's Gate 3 was super important to this community. Like, they were really excited about it because apparently sex in games is really, really like hard to do in a way that either doesn't have a ton of backlash or doesn't get you blocked from just about every store.
Because it's so prevalent in movies.
Exactly. And you know, I'm a little sad we didn't talk about that as a wider group, but I did talk about it with a guy that was sitting next to me who's real nice. He talked a little bit. No, different guy.
Okay, different guy.
Yeah. Cool. He was just he was like an audio designer, if I remember right. But
cool.
We were talking a little bit, and he said the same thing. He was like, well, Last of Us Part 2 had like a sex scene in there, and it was really, really well done. It was very like cinematic. Yeah, it was at the like beginning-ish Dina, and
yeah, but it was fade to black.
Kind of, but they still took off clothes and were like making out.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So like but you're right. It was more fade to black. But the backlash for that wasn't, you know, like it wasn't like the hot coffee shenanigans. And what I've kind of decided, because even in that situation it was very cinematic, is that cinematic feels really different because you're not pressing the buttons. You're not like doing a thing to like thrust, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just different, you know? And so like when you're watching it on screen, it can be done differently than if you're actually holding a controller and playing it. And you know, I think in visual novels and like, you know, Dream Daddy, when we played it, that one was very fade to black. For like the few scenes that didn't do it very often. But apparently Baldur's Gate 3, and I only had like one scene in it, they still did some fading to black, but it had a lot more like sexual intimacy in it than is standard for a AAA game.
Mm-hmm.
And normally like people who produce these types of games make two different versions for different storefronts. They'll have one that's more intimate and explicit, and those won't go like anywhere near like Nintendo or whatever else. And so you have to like design,
you can't do it.
you have to design your game in a certain way that you can like just chop it out and remove it for different publishers to get it on like or different platforms to get it on there. And people were really excited about Baldur's Gate 3 because that did make it out to all the broader platforms, and they still did like a lot more sexual intimacy than more normal. So the audience was super, super interested in that. And I also just learned a lot from hearing people talk about what they liked and didn't like in there, what they were disappointed in, like representation from different sexualities and what they wanted to have. There was a very large like echo in the room of people that were like Arrow or Ace being like, hey, I literally have none, things like that.
Yeah.
But it was a really interesting conversation. It definitely could have went a lot longer. And while it was wild,
that sounds like a really interesting one.
It was really interesting. I really loved it.
Yeah.
I did actually, this was the only roundtable I actually contributed to. So they talked a little bit about like whether or not you make characters play or sexual. So are they only into the character's gender regardless of what gender you play, or do they have like a set sexuality and then you just can't date them if you aren't of that gender that they prefer? So we talked about that a little bit, and that was a really interesting conversation. But overall, I would say that one was probably the most just like engaging and interesting, like to talk about it like with this audience. But some of the round tables, other ones I went to, were like pretty so. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag. But those were definitely my favorites. I learned a lot like going through it, and I have a lot of like little notes about all the different things that I took away from a bunch of these, but those are definitely my favorites.
Yeah. All right, why don't you wrap up your thoughts on the conference as a whole?
Okay, conference as a whole, I would say that this is the first conference I went to where I felt like the talks were valuable enough to go and listen to them again, versus the expo floor. I think if you went just for the networking, then just doing the expo floor would probably be fine. Expo floor was super related to just like very developer heavy things. There was an area that had games that were controlled by alternate controllers so that you could play games with like a plunger or a ladder or like a barcode scanner.
Oh, fun.
That was really fun.
I think I saw the plunger one on
my
like,
Be Real
social media.
Yeah. But there were a lot of different kinds there. They had one that was like a paper book, and you had a projector, and the projector would project things happening like on the book, and then you actually had to move the paper pop-up book to like play different levels. It was really fun, like the creativity in there. But overall, like the floor was very oriented towards like use my cloud storage technology or come to like Canada's publishing business and like join us kind of thing. So
yeah,
I was less interested in that in the current stage that I am in, but maybe more helpful for those interested in networking or actively like, you know, looking for companies to work with. So I would say I was very impressed with the talks. I was less interested in the expo floor, but I could definitely see that flip-flopping based on who you are. The other thing that I would mention overall is that the conference was super expensive. Like, oh my God, it was like $1,600 for the 3-day ticket that I had for like listening to the talks. It's even more if you do the 5-day. And the expo is pretty cheap, but like the 3 days is pretty expensive. So I would say that I found a lot of value out of it. But I also know that most of the GDC talks after 2 years get put online in their vault for free. So like vault access is like $700 if you want to pay for all the paid stuff, for like a year. So it's pretty expensive, but you get all of the stuff afterwards for free. And so I'll probably be checking out more of the GDC talks from older years.
Totally.
Especially I look forward to 2 years from now when I get the ones that I missed. I missed the Dave the Diver one. I really wanted to see that one.
Sad.
I know, I was really sad about it because it was about humor and writing. It was exactly what I needed. But overall, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot there for a lot of different types of stages of development that you're in and who you are in the industry. And the vibe was also fun, just having so many people in gaming there all at once. So overall, I would say it's definitely worth it. It was a lot of fun, really exhausting, but I really liked it.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well, that's a lovely way to end the conversation.
Yeah, I look forward to taking all the things that I've learned this week and using it to build my game. Yeah, that'll be fun. I'll have to look up if there's any talks about music. There was one that I also missed because of things that I couldn't miss, and there was one on this one that was very much so about audio design, and apparently they do that quite a bit, like audio design in different games, like the game developers. So I'm sure there are a ton of them, and I heard the audio talks were pretty good this year. So I feel like if the ones were good this year, I can't imagine that they don't have good ones from the last like 7 years or whatever.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out, as I think, because I think that'll be good as I'm thinking about how to make songs for your stuff.
I'm excited.
I am playing Outer Wilds, and the soundtrack is just gorgeous. And I know that whatever I make is not going to be that level, but still, it's kind of fun to be playing something where I'm like, oh, this music is just so good.
You can, honestly, for GDC too, you can actually even type in the names of games, and you can see all the talks from people who made those games too, because usually they're in the title or they're in like the description of the people playing them. So you can look up things that way too. Yes.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that was really fun.
It was fun. It was a very jam-packed week, and I did not play our 16 March Madness bracket games, so I'm glad that we did this week. It was very helpful.
No. You gotta pivot.
You gotta pivot.
Okay.
Yep.
Quick on topic, off topic.
Yeah.
I started reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Have you read that?
I don't think so. What is it?
It is about like two friends that make video games together, and it's like coming of age,
cute
drama. I will let you know how it goes, but it's already like pretty good and a good representation of the gaming industry so far. I'm about halfway done. And by good representation, it's like frustrating because the the two people that are friends making these games together. They're in college and they start making a game together. And the girl is the programmer and the guy is the artist. And then when they release their game, he starts getting all of the like credit for like they ask him like, oh, how was coding the game? And he keeps having to be like, well, actually, I didn't code it. It's like, oh, fucking gaming industry.
Yeah.
Like the men are like the ones that get the credit for what the women are doing. And anyways,
I love the idea of a book exploring that though, because that's really interesting. Yeah.
I was thinking like maybe we could both read it and talk about it at some point, just because it's really, I think it's pretty
I have to have
interesting.
A whole set of books for my honeymoon because there'll be plenty of reading time. So maybe I'll put that on the list. Yeah. I'll have plenty.
I don't know what else you do on a cruise.
Well,
besides,
you usually
like,
stop
chill
places.
and read.
Like, you're not stuck on the boat the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I literally only have, I think, one day on the boat. Like, the rest of it is I'm doing stuff every day. I'm going to go snorkeling. I'm going to, go see ancient ruins, that kind of thing.
Cute. And this is the Mediterranean, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I can bring, I probably need four books for my little time, so maybe I'll just make those one of the 4. I already have taken up a slot, so that can take me up to 50%. That works.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Are we wrapping it up?
I guess I'll end it.
Yes.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and rate it. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Baddy Breakdowns, and visit our website, baddybreakdowns.com, made by Bridgette. The podcast art was done by Tanisha Vernikar, and it was edited by me. The music was also made by me. Join us next time to hear us two baddies break down the rest of our March Madness bracket.
Woohoo! Yeah!
Woo!
Yeah!
Yeah! I've lost steam on these live service games,
I know,
honestly.
There's so many of them. God.
I'm sorry I roped us into this.
I believe in us. We can finish it. Finishing.
No, we can do it. We can do it. Yeah, we'll do it. It'll be fine.
Bye, guys.
Bye.